with a to have and to hold interview, which is the couples interview part of the BE collection. This is my partner, Marge. Hi. Hi. So I guess we should start with where you're located. Where are you living now?
We live in Sacramento, California. Therefore, the California poppies as our background.
I know. That is a beautiful background. I love the poppies. And how long have you been together?
It's going to be 5 years on August 7th of this year.
Oh, that's pretty
Another
soon.
month and 7 days. Yeah.
How did you meet each other?
Yeah, I had a friend over, kind of a roommate for a while, and she kept giving me a bad time about not being with somebody, because after the newspaper, for like almost 20 years, I just spent time with friends and doing things in my home. And so I just wasn't thinking about being in a relationship again, and pretty much had decided that I was going to be single the rest of my life, because I've gotten older, and when you get older, God, who's going to want you, and that kind of stuff. So anyhow, she started bugging me that night, and she got the computer out, and she wrote an ad for me in
Match.com.
Yeah. And so then, so once we did that, she turned it on, and the first person I saw was Christie.
Wow,
And
love at first sight.
Yeah, it was pretty unreal.
Click.
'Cause
I love it first click.
Right, you're lucky. So how long had you had your ad on Match.com?
Probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I had been on a couple of other free online systems that didn't charge, but I had not been really successful, and I just thought I'm going to bite the bullet and pay money. And anyway, so and I had gone on a couple of different dates with women, lunch and coffee, I think, but Linda was the third person that responded to me.
That's a lucky number, 3.
I responded to two of the reasons I responded to her, that about her hair. Her hair was just spiky. She had it, like gel in it, and just looked really cool. Then I read her description, and she was talked about herself being a sailor and teaching sailing classes and playing golf and just general social things. And I was like, oh my God, sailing is what really hit me. So that it just made me say, I guess I just went on the screen and said, what's your phone number or something? And then we talked on the phone for a long time. And that's how it started.
Seeing that this is a legacy project, the collection, online dating when I was 20, didn't exist. At least I didn't know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's commonly used, and people have good results.
Well, I fought it because I'm not into computers, not really crazy about them. Even owning like 8 of them at the office, and my staff all wanted me to learn them, and I just kept giving my work to my office manager.
I know that. How did you happen to come to Sacramento in your life, each one of you?
I got married to a man in 1972. In fact, this would have been our 50th anniversary if we had stayed together. We only stayed for 7 years.
I mean, today would have been?
This year, 2022.
Oh, this year, okay.
So I actually met him while I was still going to Chico State. And I was in my junior year when we got married. So I moved here and we got married and lived here for 7 years until we got divorced.
So it seemed that marriage was a direction you were supposed to take.
Well, I think it was a marriage of convenience more than anything. I was 20 years old when I married him. I thought that was the expectation. I had not done any serious exploration of my sexual orientation, but I think at some subconscious level and not very deep down, I knew that I was somehow different because I was violently ill on my wedding day. And,
Really?
and the week leading up to it. And I just think it was my mind, psychology and mind and body saying, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this. But, you know, I didn't know what else I was supposed to be doing. The expectation was you get married, you have kids, you buy a house, you live happily ever after. That's all I knew.
Mhm.
So I was doing the expectation of the myth until it really just didn't work anymore. I mean, he was a decent enough guy.
I'm sure.
be sure.
Right, I mean,
He was back from Vietnam, and there may have been some PTSD things that he experienced in that dreadful war. I wouldn't be surprised, but he never was in any way abusive to me physically or emotionally or anything. We were kind of probably more like good friends, but not really best friends. And I don't think there was any really strong, passionate love there. Not that I recall on my part.
that's all we're concerned about.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But if anything, the legacy, I hope, will give young women the idea that they don't have to get married. Because, you know, frankly, it's reinforced, I think, as strongly today as it was when we were younger. And it's even more elaborate. You know,
I think so too. There's
what dance you should do. I mean, it's really the pressure to follow through is great.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'm a native Californian originally, though, so I've only lived in California.
how about you, Linda?
Well, I lived in a little village called Timberlake on Lake Erie in Ohio, but we moved out here in 62 or something like that. And I feel like I'm a native. I think with my business and everything, it just threw me into the population of Sacramento. Everybody, straight and gay. And it just made me feel like that I've been here forever.
There are a lot of wonderful lesbians in Sacramento. We're meeting them.
Yeah.
We would not have met them if it hadn't been for this, right? It's impressive. So even though you've both done individual interviews, let's say your career statements for telling people what your career is at this time or has been.
Well, we're both retired at present.
Right, that's a career.
And happily retired, I can say as well too.
Yeah.
I had a number of different careers. Most of them seemed to last about 10 years. So I had about 4 different career things that I drifted through and to over the years. Everything from working in a nonprofit environment to a for-profit environment. Very eclectic kind of things, from working in the recreational sailing business and running a sailing school and a sailing club and teaching sailing primarily to women so they could feel independent about sailing, and then working for a not-for-profit organization that was designed to help support libraries and librarians and get funding for libraries in California. And we put on annual continuing education conferences. And then also my last job, which was my most favorite, was a not-for-profit insurance company for vision insurance. And I was a corporate communications and corporate videographer for the customer service department. And I loved it.
That's why you have that great background.
Yeah.
People copy that, right?
I like to pick the right visuals.
Yeah.
I know you did. How about you, Linda?
I think in college, I graduated from college in 75, but all through that time, I was always a photographer. And I worked in political campaigns and did billboards and brochures and, all types of things. And, I did weddings and did a lot of horse photography for Sulky Station West for harness racing. And
that's why I mentioned last night when we spoke about Wendy Averill, who also photographed racehorses.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She probably loves to talk to you.
I did a lot of stud photography. People wanted pictures taken of their horses where they could put them in a magazine and advertise them for stud fees and all that type of thing. and I did a lot of backstretch work um, uh, at the racetrack. But I just always felt that was kind of intermediate. Like, what am I going to do when I grow up? I have a degree now in psychology and communications, and psychology, I mean, is useful, but it certainly doesn't get you a career. And I definitely didn't want to go into therapy or anything like that. So sometimes I thought, well, I'll just do rat conditioning studies. I'll go work at UCD. And then I thought, no, I don't want to do that either.
Right. Thank you.
But mostly I survived on photography. You know, a lot of weddings and a lot of horses. And
did you work alone or with someone?
Pardon?
Did you work independent or with someone else?
Yeah, just by myself.
Huh.
And then you know, I started being more active and in the community, and I went to the women's center and just took some workshops about being a lesbian and meeting people. And then I still just kept wondering what I was going to do. I just didn't have any profound ideas and didn't do any interviews of interest. And so I, started just following the, gay movement in our community. And I think somebody said to me, boy, there needs to be a gay voice in Sacramento. And I took that phrase and was interviewed by the Advocate magazine. And they asked me a whole bunch of stuff, talked about a lot of things. And at that time, I was doing a lot of lobbying in the Capitol and down at the Capitol all the time and doing political campaigns and stuff. And so starting to be a little more open-minded and active in the community, I started hearing that phrase from everybody. How do you find out what's going on? And so in this article, I talked about that and said that Sacramento needed a gay voice, and that I had started thinking about it and thinking, maybe I could do that. But then I thought, my God, how in the world do you start a newspaper, run a business, get a bunch of reporters and writers? And, I was a little naive about it, very naive, I had never run a business other than my own graphics and horse photography.
Sounds like you minimize what you did do. Sounds like you run a few businesses. I'm on the outside.
So I did this article, they wrote this article about me, and all of a sudden the phone started ringing and said, Linda, we really want you to do it. And, a lot of comments, like from friends, and then a lot of strangers calling and saying, if you'll do it, I'll be your editor. And another guy called, David Weiner, he said, if you do it, I'll be the business manager, and because that was his background. And just that's how it happened. And just story. Calls and people wanted to be reporters, and even people from the Sacramento Bee wanted to be reporters, but changed their names or something because they were gay and they wanted to be part of a gay newspaper. So, and then the John Briggs, Senator John Briggs, started wanted to introduce a bill and wanted to make sure that all the gay school teachers and anybody related to education were fired.
That's in the state of California, right?
Yeah.
He's a state assemblyman or state senator.
And he was down south someplace. And it was called Proposition 6 on the ballot. And the ballot was going to, the voting was going to be in 2 or 3 months. So I just made the decision, I got to do it now. I got to get the paper out. teach people how to vote, have an endorsement chart on the front page, to tell people to vote no on Proposition 6. And I mean, even straight people were getting the message, and I would hear back from straight people and asking questions, and so I just threw myself in it. And one night I invited everybody over that had called, and we were just sitting around the living room talking about what we could do, and throwing out story ideas, and people saying, I want to write a story about this. And it just was a real creative evening. And then I gave everybody blank index cards, and I said, we got to think of a name for the newspaper.
I love it. Right.
Yeah. And I said, I don't want to call it River City Gay Times. I don't want to call it Sacramento Gay Times. I just didn't want a plain name. And I said, let's think of something wild, kind of like Mother Jones. That's a good name. And then you kind of want to read the publisher statement, like, why do they name it that? And, so I threw that out.
Have you, so the name of the paper was?
So just somebody yelled out. They didn't even write on the index card. Mom, guess what? And we all just said yes. It was, it was an automatic yes. It was perfect. The process that we go through when we come out, we usually tell our moms first.
Or our moms figure it out.
Yeah. So we called it Mom Guess What newspaper. And that's how it started. And we worked from my home for quite a while until my partner kicked us out and said she was tired of having 25, 30 people in the house almost every day. And I couldn't understand why, but.
So are you married? Are you both married? Are you legally married?
No, we are not.
And what was your reason for choosing not to be?
To be perfectly honest, it's primarily financial, because Linda's on full disability and I don't want my finances to be jeopardized.
Right.
So, and we also still have our own houses. Both of us have I have a small condo. She has a small single family dwelling. And we're really very comfortable in that, with our 2 cats in my case, 2 dogs in her case. And, we're only 20 minutes apart. So we call hers the city house and mine's the country house. And we go back and forth. And it's working out pretty well.
Yeah.
So what keeps your relationship magical?
I would say we have a lot of fun together. We laugh pretty doggone hard at each other in life situations. And for me, because I was really not in any kind of significant relationship from the age of 29 when I divorced my husband to when I met Linda at the age of 65, which is when I came out.
Late bloomer.
I was a very late bloomer. And you can watch my individual interview for more details on that. But
it was Pat Thompson, also in Sacramento, who came out at 80.
You're right.
Yeah, right. She sure did. And in a big way.
Right.
I think, just to be perfectly honest, my younger brother said this best one time, that it's just really sweet to have somebody to share the everyday mundane things with just as much as the big important things. I just saw a funny commercial or billboard, or I've got to go to the doctor this afternoon because of this, or I got the weirdest piece of mail today. The kinds of things that are otherwise boring and trite, to have someone to share them with, fills up a lot of space that otherwise just doesn't get filled. And for me, I think that's as sweet as having big vacations to plan or go on, or friends to go out to meals with, or, activities to get involved with that are one-time things that are special. Those are all good too, but just the everyday, daily life rituals that we have
I agree with that.
How high is that mail pile with all those duns from different Democratic people or?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And you just
Yeah.
say, okay, is it gonna reach 6 inches today or?
Just
Just
so, that's right. What's amazing is how our names have been incorporated and merged. I mean, I'm Margaret Barrett. I mean, just, and we did not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our friends do that too, you know. Christie, Linda, let's call them and see what they're up to tonight. Maybe they'd like to go with us. And
Right.
you
No,
know,
friendship's
you
really.
hear that all the time.
So when did you do the first I love you? I know that it was a commitment with each
It
other.
was actually not very long. It was, I think it was me about a month after we had met. We took a little trip down to San Francisco. I
Yeah.
said, let's go to San Francisco. I was able to get a little discount at a Hyatt there because my brother worked at a Hyatt and family discount was applicable. And I said, I'd love to go to the Castro and walk down the street and able to hold hands without feeling nervous,
Right.
to be just who we are. And so we were able to go down and spend a weekend there and did some tourist things like over to Alcatraz and, you know, around Fisherman's Wharf and whatnot. But went out to dinner one night on the wharf and I was just feeling very strongly like I had some pretty important feelings I wanted to share with her. And I said, I believe I love you.
What a nice statement.
Yeah.
And you agreed? Did you?
She did not run.
She's still there. sitting
No,
there
I was kind
talking.
of glued to my seat. I really loved hearing it, and
Yeah.
I was expecting it at some point, or I was going to say it. And you know, I think we just both mutually were falling in love right away. And I was so attracted to her just with our first date, going to the Virgin Sturgeon, which is a floating restaurant in Sacramento. And we were there, we just talked and talked and talked, and I just had such a great feeling. And then, you know, on the way home, thinking, boy, that was fun and easy. And so then we just kept talking and seeing each other.
Mhm. And it grew.
Yeah.
Pretty fast, really, because after the first time we had lunch, we ended up, we went the following weekend, I think we went to a baseball game down in Oakland. And then after that, every couple of days we were out doing something and it became to really kind of grow very fast. And we enjoyed the time we were spending together, which I think is an indicator of whether or not it's a doable
Right.
relationship. And the walls come down a lot faster that way. You know,
Yeah.
I just want to look good and not show her this or reveal that. Pretty soon you can't help it because you're just in the everyday mode.
You know, I think the other thing that was really fun, and it's still happening, was getting to know all Christie's friends, and she's got lots of friends.
Mhm.
And then I'm wanting to have her meet all my friends. And so we spent a lot of time, you know, getting together with friends and going out to dinner or just talking and telling people about, you know, what is happening. And that was just a lot of, it still is a lot of fun because I'm still meeting some of her friends.
Well, and a big part of that for me was I was not only introducing to somebody that was special in my life, but telling most of my friends, by the way,
I'm a lesbian.
I'm a lesbian. Yeah, I found out I'm gay. To which most of them said, yeah, Christie, this is not news.
I've known her whole life.
But that final, final hurdle to go over and admit it to oneself
Mhm.
is an important line, and it has to happen internally, just like so many other things, in our lives. You don't know what you don't know until you know it, and then when I knew it, it was deep and threw me through and through. And in fact, my very first public coming out was the Pride Festival in Sacramento in 2017, I think it was, that my church had a big float on, and I walked in the parade and announced to my minister and her partner that I was gay, and they said, well, good for you, get in line. back there
Yeah.
with everybody else.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was special.
So what are your dreams for the future?
Probably should continue the same.
Right.
Because that works really well. And we both would like to take more trips. We do a lot of, small trips like to the Bay Area and things like that, and go see friends.
You can come to Los Angeles, see us. You're welcome.
Thank you. We might take you up on that.
Well, we have a little house that we are in right now that
Yeah.
visitors can stay in.
We use this as an
That'd be
office.
fun.
This is
Yeah.
our office, and but it has kitchen and a bedroom. It's a great view.
Good to know. I think we want to just become better at being who we are individually and who we are with each other. We actually just are wrapping up a stretch of couples therapy that we decided to go to, not because we were in any kind of crisis,
Mhm.
but we were just having some challenges in communicating from time to time, and hurt feelings were happening, or offense was being taken. We just wanted to be able to find better ways to talk with each other. And luckily, we found a really great gay gal at an agency that took our insurance and has talked us through this, and we're just feeling stronger in our relationship because of it. And
That's great.
because it's still, just like any other relationship, whether it be close friends or man woman, it's hard. It's hard to be in a relationship with somebody because we're not identical. We have similarities, but we still have differences, and old baggage and old wounds that pop up, and we sometimes don't even recognize them or know they're there, or buttons that get pushed. And even if we're both in our 70s now, even at this age, we're still learning about who we are and what it is we need to let go of, and what it is we want to keep. And I think the older we get too, we also feel like there's some things we just really don't want to have anything to do with anymore, with people, places, things that just don't fit.
So if you have questions you'd like to ask us.
How long have you guys been together? I may have put it in some of the paperwork, but
46 years.
46 years.
Wow.
We're lucky.
Wow.
And they're all good years.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
I think what's amazing is how geographically couples meet. I mean, I came from Chicago. I rode on Route 66 with my high school partner. She wasn't a lover, but she was my best friend, a teacher. She came to California. She said, "Well, why don't you come?" I said, "Okay, I'll go for 6 months." Well, that was a long time ago. And then Marge came from
Oregon.
Oh.
And we met at LA County Hospital. I was a nurse. She was a resident in orthopedic surgery, and I wanted to work at a big hospital, and so I picked the biggest. And I'm glad I did, because I met her. So, but your steps to get into the relationship. I mean, you got married, and I didn't get married, but I found relationships that I thought were going to lead there, but they didn't, fortunately.
I was different. I knew by the age of 14 that I wasn't getting married.
She was smarter.
Did you? Yeah.
She was wiser.
And then figured out I could support myself satisfactorily, so just get to it. And I
Good for
think
you.
a lot of women get married because they don't have an economic support.
Mhm.
They don't look at their own support systems.
Well, you had a good, strong career to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
now I do, yes.
a big plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at 14, I didn't.
Yeah.
When I was semi-kicked out of college when I was 20, I didn't. I managed to get into a different school and proceed on my way because I knew where I wanted to go. But
Just like the Briggs Initiative, we've all gone through the legal hassles of people trying to undermine us or our direction. Pat Williams was the first woman we interviewed for the collection. And she had a degree. She went to school. She was a social worker. Then she figured out she had to support herself. She was a lesbian. And so she changed her direction. She's a tradeswoman. And, got a salary. She runs all these buildings in our background in Los Angeles. But just to think differently outside the box, I guess they call it, but it's helpful.
Well, they're trying to, pardon me, with the absence of Roe versus Wade, they're trying to stuff everybody back in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really,
unfortunately.
We are women. We've worked for this. You, us, we've chosen careers that have gotten us financial support and security. We worked for them. They didn't just fall on us. And Linda, I told somebody your story the other day, you just kept at it. Like my intention is to interview Rachel Maddow.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
wow.
Important. But
That's fabulous.
I'm going to have Linda call her every week, see if she's ready for the interview. Because you have more persistence than I have ever experienced.
So I asked Linda recently, I said, so did you sit down and have a big business plan before you started the newspaper? And she did that. She laughed. She goes, no, not at all.
She's got
I
persistence.
he was like, in the village that I lived in, there was a woman across the street. Her name was Dorothy, and I loved talking to her. And she kind of felt like my second mother. And her husband was Bob Gruey, and he was a big wig in the local telephone company. I don't know what that was called back then. But anyhow, I called them and told them what I was about to do. And about 2 or 3 weeks after that, this big package came, and I could tell it was paperwork. And Bob had written me a business plan.
That's
He
great.
didn't tell me that. So,
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that one. so then he, so I called him and I said, a lot of this is Greek to me, Robert. I don't understand. He says, well, read through it and write in the margins how, you have a whole different, base of what you're doing, and write in the margins that you want to do this kind of writing, or you're looking for this kind of a plan, or stuff like that, and what kind of equipment do you have, and what do you need to have. And so I went through it, and Marty, my partner at the time, she was a good business thinker too, and so we both read through it and sent it back to him, and then he rewrote it and sent it back, and I had it to the end of the newspaper, and I put it in a 3-ring notebook, and I kept it on my desk, and every now and then I'd look at it, and I think I was on the right path.
I think the biggest thing her paper was able to have the success it had and run for 30 years was right out of the gate. She was so successful in securing so many very willing, enthusiastic advertisers.
Yeah.
Who said, yes, I don't care that, I'm straight and my company's straight. I want to advertise because I know your constituency is powerful and has money. And the gay advertiser said, finally, we have someplace we can advertise.
Yeah.
Right. and be our authentic selves as well too. And so she just had no trouble at all lining up the advertisers, and any business needs that kind of financial support.
Yeah.
So we're relying on you. This is all word of mouth. I mean, this is we're at
And some of the
85 interviews.
advertisers I talked to, and some of them I knew, like Grant from Capitol Aquarium. He called and wanted to advertise and had a big aquarium store. And so I met with him over lunch. And so I just asked him out of the blue. He wanted to take out a half-page ad, but he said he might change that size, every now and then. And I said, what do you think about paying for it in advance for a year? And he said, well, I could do that. And that's
Right.
how I built up the financing. There were many advertisers that would pay me in advance for a year.
That's
And
a
then
good
new
idea.
ones were coming on constantly. So we had that income happening like a base. But that's what I did with a lot of people, and it worked out really well. And it's a good way for someone to start a business.
Mhm.
First go to your friends or whoever you're working with and type of, work. but it worked out great.
Well, I think some of the power that has come into magazines and everything is because the gay community is actually becoming a stronger community. And so they realize that advertisement and things like that are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they want to have a swimming pool cleaner that they can feel comfortable about having them in the yard and access to a key. And so we had gay pool cleaners, and we had straight ones too. But people wanted to use somebody that they knew was supportive.
Well, in your same community. I mean, I don't care if I'm
Yeah.
having an electrician or a plumber or whatever. If I can support my own community, that's
Yeah.
what I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good people. on
And we
both
did that
sides.
as a little filler ad, I don't know what our words were, but basically it was saying, please use our advertisers and tell them you saw us in Mom, Guess What? And people would do that.
Right.
Owners would do that.
We had the
I
lesbian
had-
love pages here in Los Angeles, and that was a good place for advertising for.
Yeah. So I have a great anecdote that happened to us just at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay,
Linda saw an ad by a fellow who wanted to trade bay leaves for sourdough starter. And I said, yeah, I think I want to start
Try
baking
that.
bread because there's nothing else to do. And so he didn't live very far from Linda, and she had bay leaves in her backyard. So he said, yeah, I'll ride my bike over. So he rode his bike over, was standing out in front with Linda talking for quite a bit. And I was in the house, so I hadn't heard this conversation. And he kept saying, you look familiar. And finally, they concluded, yeah, it was because of the newspaper. And he said, oh, yes, that's right. My partner and I, straight partner that had this such and such business, we used to advertise with you all the time. We would bring ads to your paper. And we loved reading your paper, cover to cover. Everything in it was so
Yeah.
interesting.
what a
Oh,
compliment.
that's great. That's a nice anecdote. But here's the kicker. He says, and I got to tell you, about 2 or 3 years ago, our younger daughter came out to us. And because of your newspaper, we knew how to handle it. And we were okay with it. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I just get teared up
Yeah.
even just talking about it now. She came in and told me that, and I just burst into tears and went, oh my God. If you ever think you don't make a difference, you just never really know. And this is 40, 50 years later, from when the newspaper started, that this person is saying, because of what you did, I have a stronger relationship with my gay daughter. That was huge.
Wonderful. It is huge. But I see that in your relationship, you really admire each other. And I think longevity in relationships comes from that. You're not trying to change the other person.
so,
You're
too.
trying to know who they are.
I really felt that my parents, above all, besides the fact that they loved each other, they respected each other. They were courteous to each other. And I remember on their 60th wedding anniversary, that being my toast, is that the thing I admired most about them is just how much they respected each other.
Yeah. That would be big.
I saw that with my parents.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
In the
Oh.
beginning of the newspaper, there were, maybe for the first 5 or 10 years, there were a lot of kids that would come in and think they were gay at 10, 11, and 12. I don't even know how they got downtown. But they'd get to our front counter and, my office manager would talk to them for a long time. She was real good at it. And then if I knew what was going on, I would walk out or invite them into my office. Because there weren't therapists or a gay center. There was nothing
Right.
for gay support kind of stuff. And I guess people just picked us, to come talk to. So a couple of the kids, much later in life, came back into the front counter. Said, "Do you remember me? I was about 12, and my name's Hank." And I said, "My goodness, yes, I do. And have you grown up?"
He got taller.
And he said, "I really appreciated what you did." I had him in my private office, and I had a sofa in there, and so we just sat on the sofa and talked. And he was worried about where he was going to go that night to sleep, and because his parents wouldn't let him back in the house. So I took him home with me, and we made a nice dinner. He liked to cook, so he was into chopping and stuff. And we just had just a wonderful evening, and I just listened to him a lot and talked to him a lot, and he wanted some books. He saw a lot of gay books in the house, and I said, well, yeah, take these and read them. And there were other kids, almost the same kind of story, where they come back in 20 years later, all grown up, and told me their story again, how it all worked out for them.
That's the advantage of the written word. I remember as a child, young person, anyway, trying to find information that I could read. And so you gave that.
Yeah, it wasn't in the public library, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
If it was in that shelf behind the desk that you could.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember trying to buy a Playboy at a store, and the guy said, I don't think you're old enough to get this. And it was all glass behind him, and then it was locked up in this glass cupboard. It was just a liquor store. I said, I'm old enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to thank you. This closes our part of the interview, and I'm so glad to know you this way, and hope we expand our relationship, actually.
Yeah.
We appreciate you too for putting this effort forth.